Fuckers. We're back today for our continuation of this no bullshit episode series. So fucking what about these self-defense mechanisms that we've covered so far? And today we are discussing how to use this information for compassionate healing for ourselves and others. Part 1. Now, the point that I'm really trying to get at with the last episode and these next two is that self-defenses are a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you do not want to be defenseless out there. I promise you that. It leaves you way too absorbative to the outside and way too self-critical, trying to be 200% self-accountable all the time. Self-defenses have purpose. On the other hand, you don't want to use the wrong self-defense mechanisms or to use them irresponsibly or past the point that they are adaptive. They're protective from undue self-scorn and the threat of overthinking that so many of us face day to day. So they are highly adaptive, but not if they are used rigidly over time, right? That's right. And this brought to mind a couple of quotes that I wanted to share. One you've certainly heard, the other one, maybe not. To become insane in insane circumstances is to be sane. I couldn't figure out where I had heard that or it originated, so I did a quick little Goog search and found that it's actually from a 1973 experiment in which they found that sane people mixed with, quote, insane people in a psychiatric unit could not be distinguished because it is sane to become insane in insane circumstances. Hence, it is sane to use self-defense mechanisms in insane circumstances, right? Similarly, it's also sane to choose your own reality when consensus reality is absolutely traumatic. Then it's highly adaptive to use these defenses to keep yourself safe and as detached as you need to be to get through some shit. But also, the other quote is, of course, doing the same thing and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So this is where we hit the point that repeating these self-defense mechanism behaviors after reality has regained sensibility, aka when you are a grown adult and theoretically at least are in control of your life enough for it to be semi-stable and, quote, sane, then it is no longer adaptive to be using these behaviors anymore. You with me? So, all of this being said, what can we use the knowledge that we've collected so far of these self-defense mechanisms for? Well, I think for understanding the games of others so that we can disarm those defenses and maybe even offer some healing to them. We can also understand what self-defense mechanisms we want to engage with within ourselves. And then we can use that knowledge to practice the highly adaptive options while being careful of those lingering low adaptive habits. And throughout all of this, we can offer compassion for ourselves and others because we recognize that there are wounds under these defenses. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The fact that it behooves us to understand why these defenses exist in ourselves and others, so we don't demonize adults who are behaving as traumatized children, aka, yeah, jackasses. And we can also offer compassion for ourselves if we are the jackasses, while also getting closer to using primarily high adaptive defenses which we have not covered yet. So, just a reminder, these are the defenses that we have covered. They're way down here at the bottom of this graphic because they are the most immature self defenses available. Hence, why they're so fucking annoying. So, we have discussed the low adaptive, immature, depressive defenses in detail so far, those being the action defenses and the major image distortion defenses. We covered action taking, help rejecting complaining, which I call assistance rejecting complaining, so that it spells out arc, as in the way that they support their story arcs while being victims the whole time, and passive aggression. We also covered splitting of self and other images, as well as projective identification. So we're going to take a look at all 5 of those self-defenses and how to use all of this knowledge for good, not just for shitting on the people who are very annoying in our lives. For each self-defense, we'll cover why the behavior exists in non-academic terms, how to work with others who use this defense, and how to work with ourselves if we use this defense. Starting with action taking. So let's understand why. These people learned that their emotions are unsafe and potentially even completely unintelligible. They might not know how to make meaning of what they're feeling. So instead of investigating, they run away from their emotions by just taking action. Act first, ask questions / investigate, never. Problem resolved. It represents a true fear of emotion based on punishing childhood experiences for having emotions and or a lack of adult mentorship emotionally. If we aren't taught how to make sense of our emotions or how to even identify what feelings are, then obviously we never know. So, ways to work with the action takers. Don't validate their action or take the distraction bait created by their impulsive behaving. So don't respond to their behavior. Your response leads to them having a new thing to focus new actions at rather than ever sending their attention or energy towards those emotional investigations. But your non-response to their behavior leaves them having to do some reckoning. Like, oh shit, wait, this isn't what I was anticipating. Now what? I still feel weird inside, and I don't know what it means, and I don't know what else to do with myself now. Plus, they might possibly feel like a jackass due to their action taking, which might force them to do a little investigation. So, I recommend that you quietly observe their behavior. You ask, so what are you feeling? And definitely expect silence or an explosion of further action in return. If they do this, I would go with something like, seems like you're not exactly sure or you're feeling a whole lot right now. Uh, Let me know when you can tell me. I would really love to talk about it. And disengage from the interaction then, whenever it's necessary, whenever they're about to launch into their next impulsive, action oriented behavior, rather than actually responding to you. Do not expect them to come back and answer you after you pose the question, but figure that with enough repetitions, they might learn to investigate their emotions after acting impulsively so that they can better comprehend what just went wrong when they get results that they weren't expecting. And they might have to learn to explain themselves if they find that they are getting themselves into hot water with this action oriented behaving, not leading to the distracted outcome that they are accustomed to. Eventually, over enough time, they might learn to address their feelings before acting instead of having to ask for forgiveness afterwards. Maybe. Now, ways to work with yourself if you realize you are an action taker. Obviously, we want to insert a pause between stimulus and action, which I think is something that probably 90% of adults struggle with. So, I recommend trying to connect a specific emotion that you practice identifying now with the action. Take a fucking breath. And or connect to the feeling of, oh, this impulsive itching, this action potential in my body that's coursing through my veins with the action. Take a motherfucking breath. You might also try to use a fun anchor word or phrase if needed to kind of break the momentum and the mindset of immediately taking action. So you might use something like, ugh, I feel this impulse and I say to myself, hold, men, steady, and, imagine a battle scene and make yourself giggle at Mel Gibson in face paint. Something like that. Then be sure to reward yourself when you do it, when you connect a feeling inside with the behavior of taking a breath, pausing, going internally. Over time, if you are rewarding yourself for doing this, it will take hold and become a lot easier. So try to add in that step of consciously reinforcing the behavior for yourself. Then, if you practice this pause enough, start using it to take a break in the conversation and the action, and using it to reflect on your emotions before you start acting. Placing them in your body, naming them, doing a quick interpretation. If you can't do a quick interpretation, request more time to step away and do that processing. And just try to always be sure that you're acting from a place of decision, not inertia. That was action taking. And up next, we're moving into help or assistance rejecting complaining. Arc. Okay, so first up, understanding why. Why do people engage in assistance rejecting complaining? It's because they have unvalidated or unseen pains existing inside of them. They don't know how to connect or receive empathy that they need or crave, or they don't know how to feel safe doing it. So they issue these externalized complaints that others could recognize as troubling or emotionally heavy if they were to extrapolate or empathize even a little bit. But the problem is, solving their problems eliminates their route to the emotional connection that they are actually seeking. So, therefore, they reject your suggestions for solutions and might even get upset by them. Ways to work with the assistance rejecting complainers. Step one, validate their emotions, not their problems. Like, that sounds overwhelming and scary. Wow, that must all create a lot of feelings too. How are you dealing with all of that emotionally? Do you have enough personal support or people to talk to about all of this? Number two, maintain the emotional connection while you ask if they want help, if they can accept help right now, such as, with all of that going on, do you have the bandwidth to consider possible solutions? I'm happy to just sit and listen, but I can also offer you some solutions and even help you enacting them, but only if you're up for it. Or I don't mean to oversimplify these complicated issues or any of the emotions that they stoke, but if you are interested, I have some ideas. Again, do not expect a straightforward response or them snapping out of this mode of communication right away. It's probably a pattern that they enact with a lot of people in a lot of circumstances. But with enough instances of you, one, offering that empathetic connection, naming the emotions that must be behind their problems, and number two, asking permission to offer help while maintaining that open emotional connection, they might begin to feel safe to discuss their emotions directly. Validating their long burning, unseen, and unvalidated pains might then open the door to their own considerations of problem solving or help accepting without all the fucking frustration on your part, trying to force them into taking a good thing that you're trying to offer. Ways to work with yourself if you are an assistance rejecting complainer. Recognize what you really need and what you aren't receiving. A resolution to your practical problem might sound good, but I ask you to consider, do you actually have the spoons to enact a solution right now? Or realistically, many solutions to many problems? Or are there potentially some heavy brain occupying pains that are clouding your executive functioning and your ability to follow through? It's okay. No worries. A lot of us end up in that place. Address the feelings first so that the rest of your brain becomes re-available to you. And on top of just addressing the feelings, recognize the unmet need that goes along with them and make sure you're satiating that need as much as possible. So again, the rest of your brain becomes re-available to you. To do this, number one, find a safe social partner. A therapist, if you do not trust anyone in your life, ask them if they have space for an emotional or a heavy conversation. Thinking about your problems, what emotions come up? And if possible, can you try to narrate about those emotions to your conversational partner rather than speaking from those emotions? Which can be difficult for people. Sometimes other folks get overwhelmed as they sense that you are just sending straight feelings their way without the filter of really describing what and why. Continue discussing them as it feels safe and comfortable, and repeat the emotional connection need as much as you need to. If things are moving into the solution giving stage before you're ready, if that's not what you're looking for, tell the other person that. And number two, process problems and potential solutions slowly when you're ready. You do not need to come to conclusions or full thought out action plans in one sitting. And you probably won't have the best results if you do, at least in my experience as someone who does a slow job of type 2 processing. So begin gently considering the solution to one problem, and then you know the old advice. Break it down into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually write them plus any necessary details down somewhere so that you're not carrying it all in your head. But overall, when it comes to actually solving your problems or accepting the help that's being offered to you, give it time. First, introduce the problem and the potential solution to your brain, and then let it incubate. It's okay. Give it room to breathe. Do not push. Leverage your flow states. The solutions come to you when you're vacuuming or washing your hair. Keep processing emotionally throughout, and then take action when you are able to, when your brain and body give you the okay to make your move. Over time, you will learn to separate the emotional processing from the problem solving by yourself and with other people. One part of problem solving is emotional processing, and you're going to want to do the emotional work before attempting to consider the practical work, or else the practical work is going to be based on emotions, potentially more so than reality. Trying to tackle both the emotions and the practical considerations at once can also lead you to overwhelm, stagnancy, a sense of helplessness, and pissing off the people around you. So, first feel safe and seen, then find solutions. That was assistance rejecting complaining. Up next is passive aggression. So, why? Why are people passive aggressive? These neglected souls do not believe that they are allowed to, number one, directly ask for help. Number two, directly express thoughts and emotions. And number three, even have wants, needs, preferences, thoughts, feelings, or opinions. As children, they were probably treated as burdensome second class citizens in their family home. Frowny face. This treatment may have continued for them into adulthood because they repeat circumstances that feel familiar, and also because, ladies, holler. It turns out that we are very commonly socialized to give care, but do not take care. So, ways to work with passive aggressive folks, aka oftentimes women, but men do it too. Do not react to their passive aggressive display. This, again, distracts from the real issue, and then it creates conflict that they might be expecting slash kind of trying to provoke. Observe quietly. Ask them what they really think slash feel while validating the worth of their perspective. And stay stoic and non-reactive, yet open and curious. Don't stonewall them, but stay inquisitive, yet kind of blank, not reactionary. And this is in case of another shit response coming your way, which is likely. Passive aggression is generally followed by more passive aggression. In other words, I recommend that number one, you're passively non aggressive in response to them. You can kind of blow their passive aggression off, playing stupid, like you just don't understand that they're being passive aggressive, or just accepting their words at face value, or not acknowledging it at all. So, for instance, they might say, "Sure thing, boss." And you can be like, lol, oh my God, you're so funny. Or, "Sure thing, boss." And you're just like, "Yes, I am your boss. Moving on." Or you don't say anything at all to their shit comment and you move into step number two. Bring it back to their feelings, needs, opinions by asking a value demonstrating question. Let me show you what I mean here. So you might say something like, "I know, right? So what do you really think about this though?" Or, "I'm so with you, Carol. It seems like you might have some insights about this. I'd love to hear them so we can make the best decision, all wisdoms considered." Or, you know, if you really want to get playing dumb with it, you can be like, "Ha, YOLO. You're a really big part of this, Barb. What's coming to your mind?" Or, Definitely don't just agree with me, Susan. I am no expert. I could use your insights and I want to know what you've experienced too. Things that are disarming and feed them what they are not expecting, which is your interest in what's going on with them internally, while again, not getting aggressive in return to their passive aggression. Expect that distrust, reluctance, and continued passive aggression is going to happen, at least for a while. Remember, it's a protective measure. Stay steady, continue offering them validation, curiosity, and opportunity to express themselves directly. And when they do, eventually you'll get them to respond positively. Demonstrate with your behaviors that they matter and will not be punished for their thoughts and feelings being shared. With time, they might accept that you are a safe person that they can practice being direct with. It might be really relieving for them. You can also drop verbal hints about others, letting these passive aggressive folks know that it's normal adult behavior to speak directly, and it is well accepted by other healthy people. You could say something like, "Oh my God, I love dealing with this lady. She always speaks very straightforwardly, and there's like no bullshit. I really respect it." Eventually, they might generalize the behavior to more situations when they get positive results with you. Ways to work with yourself if you are a passive aggressor. Identify your hostility. What are you expecting is going to happen? Is the expectation based on history with this specific person in question? Does this person always react that way? Or do they remind you of someone who always acted a certain way? Is the expectation based on a long history of other people treating you negatively? And can you mentally separate the experiences? Can you draw a line in your autobiographical recall of before times and after times and recognize that things can be different now? Or is passive aggression simply in your bones? Maybe you're honestly not even sure what it is or how to be direct. Maybe people have always told you that you're passive aggressive, but you're not even sure how or why or how to identify it when you're being that way. I recommend going back to the nonviolent communication series from the end of last year if that is the case. This suggests a lifetime of passive aggressive experiences with others in the way that you received them and they received you, or they allowed you to behave in their presence. So you might go through some critical thinking questions like, is there any chance that the future will be different from the past? And you might ask yourself this before you go into every social interaction. Is there some chance that this is going to be different than things were back when I was a child and teenager? Yeah, there's a pretty good fucking chance. Do you have any alternate evidence of another potential outcome? Has there ever been a time that you've been direct and things have gone well? Great. Think about that. Repeat the way you acted then with people who also are similar to the ones who responded positively then. Try again. Can you even just imagine another possibility if your last two answers to those questions were no? And if you say no to all of the above questions, I'm going to prompt you to recognize that those are some trauma blocked thought patterns. You will only get to the same results with the same fucked up core beliefs and behaviors derived from your traumas. And they sound kind of depressing so far if you can't imagine any other future for yourself than one that is tethered to your past. So you might as well try something new, huh? Hmm. If you receive new results with new behaviors in new circumstances, and you will, do be sure that you process and absorb that experience. All right. Don't call it like a one off accident or brush it away or just move on to your next task in the day. Reflect on the experience, journal about it, discuss it with others, bring it to your trauma recovery friends and say, look what I did today. I stood up for myself at work. I spoke directly and something good happened. Huh. What do we all think about that? And take your thoughts and reflections with you throughout the day, like in the shower, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're laying down to go to sleep at night. Start to sew this new story, this new set of behavioral plans into your brain. Direct expression plus a calm, respectful, confident behavior leads to being heard and other positive results like better relationship conditions. And if you do not receive a positive result, like I'm telling you that you can expect you will, I prompt you now to assess if the health, maturity, and adaptiveness of the other party is up to snuff before you just go ahead and take it as a big ol' L against yourself. Keeping in mind that many of us, again, especially women, were socialized to reject direct communication, to be threatened by it. So they may be in your old shoes, which is why you got the reaction you don't really want. Don't put worn out kicks back on your toesies. Just invite your conversational partner who demonstrated passive aggressive behavior to upgrade their shoes with you. Again, by being a positive example and giving them positive reinforcement when they do the damn thing. And that was passive aggression. Up next, we're going to talk about splitting. But we're going to do it next time because these defenses are getting more and more complex, y'all. Especially the one that is conducive to a disorganized perspective and personality system, plus or minus true narcissism. That's the splitting of self and others' images, which we're opening with next time. Are you ready for it? Burr, burr, burr. In the meantime, check out the self-defense series so far. Enjoy the updated graphics attached to this post and share your experiences getting past defenses in others and maybe in your goddamn self. Till we speak again next episode, hail yourself, hail King Archie, and my little pinto bean prince, Marcus Barks. And cheers, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.